Hello, this is the RPG Crawler, and welcome back to another Indie Game Friday, where each week I take a look at a different independent role-playing game. This time I'm taking a look at a 2D side-scrolling RPG that has influences evident from a number of non-role-playing games. Regions of Ruin was developed by Vox and published by Poisky Productions and Fanged. It was released on February 5th, 2018. Regions of Ruin has a few elements that you might see in other games. One that comes up in comparison to it often is Kingdom. However, it also has a proper role-playing game system built right on top of that. Regions of Ruin has a variety of subsystems in it that focus not only on building and upgrading your camp or town, but also on improving your character's abilities and gear in general. In terms of plot, a war long ago caused the dwarves to withdraw from the overworld. After they returned to it centuries later, they found that the surface was overrun with evil. These creatures soon swept in and drove the dwarves from their newly opened mountain homes, scattering them across the land. Now you are tasked with gathering up the ragged remnants of the dwarves to forge a new future. The primary gameplay involves maneuvering around 2D side-scrolling maps as you would most other side-scrolling games, by running, jumping, and climbing ladders, or jumping up ladders, and so forth. You are also able to attack with your weapon, power attack with it, and block with your shield. A dash button enables you to rush past or dodge certain enemies, and as you defeat enemies, you gain experience. You can reveal items, treasure, and resources on the map by basically attacking or looting every single object that stands out. Although this isn't as all-inclusive as, say, Terraria, the items that can be looted or destroyed are common and they're usually pretty obvious. As you gain experience, you will eventually advance a level. Doing so allows you to distribute a point between your three main ability scores: Strength, Dexterity, and Constitution, as well as putting a point into a talent. Now there are 4 talent trees. Although some of the basic talents are unlocked right at the start of the game as basic abilities, the majority of them are open for you to explore later on. They consist of either passive bonuses or triggerable actions that can either add a new combat move or expand an existing one. For instance, you can learn to throw axes, which is an entirely new move, or rush while blocking to plow through enemies with your shield, which is just a combination of 2 pre-existing moves that you can then unlock the combo for. On top of this basic ability and skill tree system, there's plenty of equipment to find. You may encounter a variety of weapons, armors, and accessories that give different boosts to your stats. These are generally generated randomly while looting chests, which means that you're pretty much subject to the random number generator, which can be a minus for some people I know. The action RPG elements are fairly straightforward and interesting, and combined with the different tactics necessary to fight particular enemies or groups of enemies, that would make a pretty solid little platformer RPG on its own. However, that's actually just the face of the game. Remember when I said that you'd be gathering resources? That is to enable you to develop and upgrade an entire town, as well as to craft and upgrade equipment. In camp, you initially start with simply a campfire, to which dwarves you rescue in other areas may rally. You can then move to either side and uncover plots, upon which you may build additional buildings, provided that you have the appropriate resources. Every building offers new options. For instance, a trading post allows for purchases of certain gear, a blacksmith offers repair services, the ability to purchase some additional arms and armor, as well as the ability to forge the same. The tavern provides some modest income, as well as the ability to hire NPCs that can journey with you and assist you in battle. If you have enough money, you can essentially lead an entire party around to engage tougher areas. With sufficient resources, you can often upgrade these buildings, which not only improves their basic contributions, but may unlock additional abilities as well. For instance, upgrading the tavern can provide access to a jobs board, which offers various bounties. Now, each area is a 2D side-scrolling map all its own, but new areas may be unlocked by exploring an overworld map. This costs food to explore each area, but after this you may travel to each unknown area at will. Accepting quests from various NPCs may indicate new areas on your map in the unexplored area as well, just to give you a direction that you can make your way towards. But you can uncover unmarked areas just by randomly exploring if that's your thing. Once you've completed an area, you can often send some of your workers that are attracted to your growing settlement to harvest resources. For instance, completing a forest combat area may allow you to send workers to harvest wood from it. These areas range from very small, relatively peaceful places, like a farm or a hermit's hovel, up to an entire dungeon area or an orc fortress. In addition to various monsters, bosses, and resources, they may house NPCs that either offer their services or additional quests. The basic combat system mentioned before includes an injury system. Although there is the classic reduction of hit points with each strike, they may also inflict wounds that limit your character's ability to interact with the environment, modify their movement options, and generally decrease their maximum health. Now, your character will regenerate health with time, but removing injuries generally requires you to see a doctor to patch you up. There's also an equipment durability system, which will require you to monitor your armor to make sure it's still able to protect you. Fortunately, repairs are relatively cheap. Now, I hate to say this, but this is another of those games where I wasn't able to fully explore all of the various crafting subsystems and similar systems in the time I allocated. And that's usually a good thing from what I've seen, simply because it means that there's a number of them. In this case, it may be problematic because some of the systems I did encounter seemed a little bit either unnecessary or optional. The various systems do really give a sense of developing the character and settlement alike, though, and the number of dwarves that you eventually have hanging out in your settlement or following you around can really make you feel like a leader. In terms of graphics and sound, the graphics are pleasant, not quite retro 2D sprite and tile-based, as is common with some retro-style platformers, and I pretty much appreciated them. There's just enough feedback to allow for a sense of ease of play without being overly complex. Likewise, the music and sound are well done and well selected, giving the overall presentation a pretty cohesive and pleasing aesthetic. The only real complaints about the graphics that I have are the sprites look somewhat out of place compared to some of the backgrounds, and the UI and various menus are a little bit on the rough side. They could use some more standardization and polish. Of course, there are a few other minor quibbles as well. For one, gameplay fairly screams for a controller, and while you can use a controller, the UI and general variety of things to do makes some of it somewhat awkward to do, thus pretty much necessitating use both a controller and a mouse-keyboard combo. This can cause some unfortunate juggling in some instances, and I'm not entirely sure how you'd get around it. There's also a sort of snowball effect present with the character and gear balance. I only saw the beginning of this game, first few hours in, but it seems that once you get onto a decent roll with your gear, followers, and upgrades, the challenge begins to decrease all in all. Now, this is also fairly common with these sorts of games. There's a problem with a lot of systems, as I said, that some of them are a little clunky and seem a little bit poorly implemented or optional, and the follower AI in some instances is completely brain dead. They're okay enough as long as the map's flat, but while exploring some dungeons, I've had them fall into pits and unable to get out, that sort of thing. Now, I don't think that the issues I mentioned are really deal breakers for most people. And I have to say that the game is not only pretty charming, but an overall pleasure to play. There are also some free, as of this recording, DLC called Sieges that not only offer new companions, mercenaries, and loot, but also a new siege mechanic, basically an entirely new encounter type. Ordinarily, I'd say that I'd like add-ons such as this rolled into the main game, but I can see where that particular one may not appeal to everyone, so keeping it as its own DLC is just fine with me. Overall, I do recommend this game if you have interest in either 2D side-scrolling action RPGs or base or town building games such as Kingdom. It's a game that's not only pretty fun to play, but offers a sort of mix of both loot-grabbing exploration and incremental improvement mechanics that make it difficult to put down once you start. And honestly, I feel like I want to go play the game some more, so I'm going to leave it at that. This has been the RPG Crawler with my Indie Game Friday Regions of Ruin. As always, I'll leave a link in the description below. If you like what you've seen, remember to leave a like, comment if you got any feedback, and subscribe for more RPG content, both tabletop and computer. I do have a Patreon at patreon.com/rpgcrawler that goes towards supporting this channel and these reviews. Until next time, take care and goodbye.